Phil Morell was born April 30th, 1947 in Moberly, Missouri. His life as an artist has taken many unique and interesting tacks since then. He began his serious art education in 1966, studying and working under the tutelage of both Curtis Otto and John Stewart from the years 1966 to 1968. By 1967, Morell was beginning to exhibit works in group shows, both private and public, from California to New York. As direct result of the museum showings in New York City, the artist received his first one-man show in Connecticut in 1969. Phil Morell is one of the true undiscovered masters of this century. He illustrates life in Los Angeles, or the world for that matter, as if he were God, or Mother Nature himself. Well, maybe he is. Phil Morell has worked on over a dozen feature films as scenic artist, or also as art director. Well, congratulations. You have discovered Phil Morell.
One of the first things I can remember as a young artist, before I took myself, or I should say, before I took the act of making art seriously, it was hard for me to sell the work and all this, and frankly, I wasn't that good yet. But one of the things I can remember is hanging a sign on my door saying "Artists at Work," and it would be a great opportunity to go out and find girls to bring back to my studio to do their portraits, and I am not. Haven't been then, nor am I now, a portrait artist. I can draw women well from memory, but when they're there, I cannot think of anything other than the fact that they're there. So it was almost kind of a sham, and so in between time, I'd make paintings, and New York City, after working with a guy out here in California by the name of Curtis Otto, who was an absolute total 100% maniac. He drew, hundreds of paintings, or pictures, I should say, pen and ink, reed drawings a day on cheap paper, and he would draw these things and throw them away immediately. And the whole reason behind that was, as I later found out, that the more drawing you do, the more proficient you become, and that, in fact, anyone who can sign their name is indeed able to draw, whether they know it or not. So this was kind of an exercise that I learned early on how to draw, which I used in New York City when I was there in about 1969, hanging out with all the other goofy freaks of my age and stuff. I was selling watercolors on the corner of 55th Street and 5th Avenue to passers-by, and did fairly well. And then fast-forwarding all that stuff, I did a number of things to make a living. And to support myself as an artist, and about a little over a year ago I decided I was going to stop doing everything and focus all my attention, all my time to painting, and that I was going to become a quote-unquote successful artist. I didn't care if my ass fell off doing it, that I figured if my back was up against the wall somehow or other, I would figure out how to sell the work in order to make a living. And the first series that I did at the beginning of that period of time was called Angry Cars and Crowded Freeways. I'm a product of Los Angeles, and the automobile and the freeway system is an obvious icon of what's going on. It's descriptive of our culture. And at the same time, I wanted to bring into my artwork elements of solid drawing and composition that was based on the old masters in the Renaissance time of dramatic compositions and subtle uses of color, and I tried to incorporate those into various compositions, and one of which was called Chrysler on the Cross. And the car that was on the cross was not necessarily recognizable Chrysler. It was an artistic device that gave a sort of a theme to that particular painting. And there was never, at least on my part, it was never meant to have any kind of serious religious overtones. It was just a device to make the painting cohesive. And I've always been of the mind to let the writers and let the other people come up with whatever meanings they find in the pieces themselves. And I later went on to a piece called The Last Supper, which was a little bit after the time of the San Francisco earthquake, and so there was a sort of a broken freeway over-ramp with cars and a Chrysler-type car at the center of the composition, and all his disciples along the side of Volkswagens, and little Volkswagen stealing a can of oil from the car adjacent to him type thing. And that progressed to the point where I couldn't come up with any more compositions, any more real viable ideas for things to do with the cars at that time. So I went into another series called Highways of My Mind, which was spawned, frankly, from the fact that I ran out of canvas and money was tight and I couldn't buy more canvas, so I did wood. And from those early pieces on wood, I started developing techniques that eventually went into other series. The Highways of My Mind became very decorative and kind of lost my focus as far as the passion aspect of my art is concerned. So I became really bored with that sort of thing and went on to another series called L.A. Woman, variations on a theme. And a lot of times a series of work will come about in various different ways. Sometimes I'll do a drawing, and the drawing focuses my attention on one theme. In the case of the L.A. Woman, though, I was dissatisfied with all the work that I'd done to that point, which is always the case whenever I'm ready to change direction into a new series. I'm always dissatisfied intensely with the previous work, and I cannot stand holding on to my work for more than a month at a time. It just drives me nuts. That's why I sell it as quick as I possibly can to freshen my space in my mind. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to do with this new series is I had a mental image of the types of art that I want to achieve the quality of hanging in a museum. Frank Stella and Rauschenberg, all the heavies from the 60s, some of the current artists, Chuck Arnoldi and Peter Alexander and Dwayne Valentine, all of these people that I ran into locally in Venice over the years are my mind's idea of what a successful artist looks like as far as their studio, the way they go about doing their work, their focus and their business and professional attitude is what I want to try to achieve. And so with all that stuff running around in my head in a complete, total blackness as far as where I was going to go, I came up with this image that I literally stood on a sheet of plywood, drew out this form, cut it out, and it became the basic shape of approximately 100 and some odd pieces afterward, which L.A. Woman variations on a theme was. Technically, it was a great series. Conceptually, it was a little bit weak to me because there was nothing, in my opinion, about the pieces that really was descriptive necessarily about women in L.A. It was female forms cut and reassembled and so on and so forth in an assemblage style. So I eventually did all I could do in that series. Had about 2 weeks lag time, and then came up with my current series, which is called Boundaries, which I think is real strong conceptually because the direction and the concept behind it is artwork breaking out of traditional rectangular, square, circle, oval, whatever types of shapes that people normally see hanging on their walls, where one of these pieces can dominate a space without actually standing in a space as a sculpture, which is not a new idea. Frank Stella's been doing it for a number of years, and all I'm doing is I'm investigating that type of process myself. And that's pretty much where I am at present with my work, and I've got some things on the board for future work. Painting in the 60s was my first real beginnings of passion with the process of actually painting. I drew pictures for many years, ever since I was 5 years old. So I had a knack for drawing, and I loved to draw. And people used to tell me all the time as a young boy I should paint. And it always seemed somewhat intimidating to me. And I remember I finally broke down. I bought a set of Liquitex oil paints. And what seemed to me at that time to be very large canvases, they were 18 by 24. And remember thinking, what an enormous surface to cover with this paint. So I played around. And at that time, I was living in Lancaster, which is, by no stretch of the imagination, the art hub of our culture. But I was fortunate to run into some, what I consider avant-garde artists. There was a guy who was teaching art at a school there, a local college, by the name of John Stewart, who was doing these great canvases that were with techniques that were definitely not out of the mainstream. He was using different types of materials and spraying through them and this and that, and having acrylic flow paintings go through there. So it introduced me to a whole new concept of painting. But I think the strongest influence by far was another person of that kind of group. His name was Curtis Otto. He was a maniac. He lived to paint. He had a farm out there. I don't know exactly where he got his money. It was somewhat from the painting, and I think he owned property. But this guy was dangerous to ride with. I'll never forget when my girlfriend and I and he took a trip to the L.A. County Art Museum. He would be constantly looking into the sky or off the side of the road at things to paint. He was a landscape painter, and a very vibrant one, and his landscapes always were predominated by brooding, stormy skies with subdued colors but very strong and high impact. And when we were displaying at the Dawn Gallery, which was a small gallery in Lancaster at the time, he would literally roll out sheets of newsprint paper and draw these gesture drawings, which I learned to do myself. And the intensity of those drawings and his personality stuck with me. And whenever I get into a slump, I remember that manic intensity that Curtis Otto had in his passion with his work, and I remind myself that if I want to continue working, that's the kind of energy I need. When I was in New York, I ended up in New York with a lot of fantasy about what it was going to be like to be in there. I just broke up with a horrible relationship, moved back to Connecticut with this girl whose folks were there. I literally ended up in New York City in the East Village off the IRT subway with a trunk that weighed about 75 pounds. Not a dime in my pocket, with all these ideas that I was going to become a successful artist. I had about 10 rolled-up canvases and art supplies and so on and so forth. And I was about, I think, 22 years old, so I started going to the head shops and quickly found out it was just going to be not so easy. And while I did go to the West Village and sell some paintings on the street for incredibly low prices just to continue to eat, for the most part, I got kind of sucked into the underground drug culture kind of thing, and it's a miracle I survived that period of my life. I did continue to do watercolors because watercolors were portable. As I said earlier on, I used to go to 5th Avenue and 55th Street and sell watercolors to the tourists. My life was so unfocused. It was during the time of just briefly before Woodstock. I ended up going to Woodstock, so a great portion of that time in my life was really not very focused as far as any kind of career other than just barely making a living enough to eat. And the few experiences that I did have briefly with a small gallery called the Museum, which was a sort of a co-op sort of thing, and we would display in there, but there was really, it wasn't run by anyone that I think really was trying to promote the pieces to sell. It was more or less, here's what the artists do, come in and take a look at it. And it was more or less a time of my life that was, as a 22-year-old man in that period of time, everything that goes along with it. I was never really a radical this or that. I went to the protest simply because there was a lot of little young girls there, and I liked to party, and people would ask me my views of the war, and basically I had none except that I didn't want to go. And that's pretty much that period of time.
Artist Phil Morell. Okay, tell us a little about your new line of work.
Well, the new work is an extension of the previous series that was called L.A. Woman, which was primarily assemblage and uses of color that was in a lot of ways similar to watercolor. And the new series is called Boundaries, which is dealing with breaking out of square and rectangular sorts of formats and letting the artwork sort of dominate the space. And I've got about 3 or 4 pieces completed in that new series, and I've got a few more on the board. And shortly I'm going to be working in conjunction with not Omni, but Quarterdeck Computer Systems. And they've been a big help, they've been a supporter. And we're going to team up together on something of a promotion for a new line of software in which some of my images are going to be incorporated in that. That's kind of exciting. And that's pretty much where that part of the work is at this moment.
Okay. So Phil, tell us a little bit about where your studio is located, the space, and kind of, tell us a little bit about what it's like.
Okay. Well, the studio is located on Main Street in Santa Monica, and the studio for approximately 20 years has been primarily a print shop with several artists, roughly 12 people at any given time. And it's gone through a lot of changes. A lot of areas have been staked out where the different artists have come in and kind of improved the property. We have a relatively good deal on the rent. It's not overly expensive. And I came in several times over the last 10 years for short projects. And when I decided that I wanted to do this full time, approximately 14 months ago, I came in basically with a brush and a couple of tubes of paint, and I got a commission and I built on that, and I eventually locked in my space right directly on Main Street so that the passersby could see what I was doing. That would give me the opportunity to show my work and also show them how the work was progressing and how it was done. Now there's still about 12 artists. There's Sandy Bleifer, who's also in the front. We have a gallery that we all take turns in. Jack Dugan is the originator of the entire studio. And so it's a good place for us all to work together. We have a diversity of styles. And it's a great opportunity for me right now to explore. And stuff like that.
So I noticed that when I was down in the studio, I saw some of the Angry Car series back in effect. What's going on with that?
Well, I have some commissions recently that 3 different people have chosen work based on earlier series. One series goes all the way back to about 1980 when I was doing a series of paintings called L.A. Sleaze, and it was about about a number of things. It was about people that were in the streets in downtown Los Angeles when I had my studio there, and some elements of the series also had to do with the behind-the-scenes art world. The openings after the openings, the parties after the openings, and some of the elements, the visual elements, came from a place called Al's Bar, and it was a sort of a composite, not necessarily a recognizable space in Los Angeles, but a composite of a lot of different areas like that throughout the country that were sort of subliminal in my memory that I put down on canvas. It was a series that probably had about 40 or 50 pieces, and it was a somewhat short series. In the Angry Cars, there were some favorites that a lot of people seem to like. They liked the Last Supper piece. I've done several different versions of that, several different versions of Chrysler on the Cross, and several different versions of Freeway Overpass paintings. And I tried to give a different feel to each canvas that I do, so that they aren't just like prints. They're not exactly like. Each one I try to make better than the last one.
Still here with artist Phil Morell. Phil, the ultimate question: what is art to you?
Art to me is an absolute obsession. I can't not do art. I started painting about when I was, I think, about 17 years old, and for all that time, I've painted. I've put together studios. I've done a number of jobs in order to support myself as an artist. And recently, a little over a year ago, I decided that was all that I was going to do. And it's a labor of love. To me, there's not really any mystery about it. I could have probably chosen any number of other things to do that would have been just as much of an obsession to me. But it's a thing. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I want to do the very best art that I'm capable of doing, and I base that on looking at what I perceive as the best art over the centuries and current artists. I spend a lot of time looking at what I perceive as being the best. And one of my goals is to continue doing the best art and hopefully enjoy some of the benefits that goes along with it. Maybe get a bigger studio and have some assistants, and they in turn can get an idea of what goes into it. And the ones who decide that they want to go into art full-time, they'll get an idea of what's involved with it, so maybe they'll give me a chance to give back basically what people have given me over the years. Other artists have given me a great deal of experience and knowledge that I'm sure that they were unaware of. It was just the fact that I was able to come into their studios and see their energy, pick up their energy, see the work that they did. And apart from the actual mechanics and technique of putting the paint down or whatever it was, I also got a chance to see some of the behind-scenes business aspects of the art, which has been absolutely invaluable. I couldn't have learned what I know now if I just simply gone to school, I would believe, because it's the kind of things that they don't teach you. And if I could, one word that would summarize the feeling I have about art is it's pure obsession.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Bill Morrell wants to attack the art world. Do you feel like you have something that's not out there, something that will open eyes?
Well, you know, I don't know that I have anything that I can attack the art world, but that would be really presumptuous of me. All I really want to do is use everything that I've learned by looking at other people's artwork and do the very best quality artwork that I can possibly do. And I think that there's people out there, I know that there's people out there that like what I do, and I got to tell you that to me it's an honor to be able to do anything that anybody would pay money for to hang in their home. And if I can give, if people can get a little bit of pleasure out of what I enjoy, this is like a kid getting paid to play, you know. This is just really what it is. I enjoy doing what I do. While I have to switch into business mode in order for me to make enough money to pay for the materials and the upkeep and my rent and my food and all that kind of stuff, bottom line, I really enjoy what I do. It's an obsession. And those kinds of decisions, whether or not I'm doing anything that's monumental or breakthrough, that's entirely up to the individuals out there that's buying it. And I don't have, I mean, I have pride in my work, but I don't have a lot of ego in it. You know, I'm real proud of what I do, but at the same time, I don't see myself as, you know, the current Picasso or a Rembrandt or anything. I'm a guy, Bill Morrell, who does paintings and enjoys doing paintings, and people seem to like them, and they give me money for them, and I make more.
Here we are with artist Phil Morrell. Phil, do you see a lot of Los Angeles in your work?
Well, in particular, the angry cars and crowded freeways. I suppose that could be true in almost any metropolitan city, but LA is known for its heavy traffic, and cars are a part of our day-to-day life. That very much is Los Angeles, and I would suspect also in all my art, even the non-objective assemblages, have LA elements of color and composition, because I think that if an artist is working, he reflects the area that he's working in, you know, and the culture and the energies. So I would suspect that there's a lot of elements of Los Angeles in it. For example, if I were to move to a Midwestern place, maybe my color sense would change, compositions might change, any number of things. So I would suspect it does. A lot of people have said it does.
How do you think people view your work?
Well, it's difficult to say. You know, obviously the people who buy my artwork, they must like it, and it depends also on the series. The people who are drawn to the assemblages like the idea of the three space. I don't know. That's a hard question for me to answer. I know when I'm excited with the piece, whether I like it. I know how I feel about the piece when it's done, and that's a tough one. I don't really know. They like it enough to buy, and I suppose that makes me happy, and that's all that matters. It's kind of, I live to make the art and continue on in the best fashion I can doing that. I really don't know.
It seems that the people who are fascinated with your work always seem to bring up the Angry Car series. Do you consider that like your biggest triumph as far as sales are concerned, or what is the Angry Car series?
Well, Angry Cars is it's a personification of the automobile. I've taken the car and I've put it into standard formats. And when I say standard formats, some of the most popular pieces in the Angry Cars is the Chase, of which I've done probably a dozen or more variations of, and that people can relate to as they sit in traffic, rather as the traffic starts moving, I should say. And if you've ever gotten up to speed and had a huge semi behind you, you know, you feel like you're the prey and that's the predator. So that's the appeal of the, there's a connection, there's an identification with that. With the other series, it stems from when I was studying the old master drawings from the Renaissance, and there's all these really theatrical, religious paintings. And what I did was I've taken the automobile and two paintings in particular. One was Chrysler on the cross, where I have this image of a car that's not recognizably a Chrysler, but it's you know, it's an automobile that's on a cross, and it's got three other crosses, so it kind of goes back to the Christ figure on the cross, and I thought it was a kind of a neat thing. And I'm not a writer, and I'm not real good verbally, so I do all my I connect with people visually, and a lot of people have put their own meanings to it. If they're really religious, they look at it and they find things. Everybody looks at it, finds something different, and even people who can't stand cars and hate the traffic seem to like it, because what it does is that there's a bit of fun in it. I've not tried to focus on the negative aspects of it, but rather the humorous aspects of it, and I think that people respond to that. And I think that as a result of that, that's why that series has been as successful as it has.
Two things are never the same.